Alrighty, welcome to the Action Tips and Tricks webinar series. This week's topic is managing overline totals. I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Tim Cook. He's a Sage estimating consultant here at Action. You can take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Sullivan. Yeah, like she said, I am the estimating consultant here at Action, here to help with all things estimating. And today we are going to be talking about overlines and overline totals. Specifically, what is an overline? And why can't I see them all the time? How you can modify them in the spreadsheet view, and how you can actually set them up to automatically calculate your overline quantities. So those are really the topics we're going to cover today. And the best way to show that is actually to jump into the software. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so this is Sage Estimating, and it's just a sample estimate here. So overlines in general are summaries or rolled up summaries. So for example, if you wanted to know the total cost of your general conditions, that would be an overline total. As you can see here, they are not showing up. If I collapse my estimate, so I'm not showing any of the detail anymore, now I do get these overlines, and you can see them as these big bold numbers here. And if you come in here and you just put in something into your square footage, now it's going to start calculating unit cost overlines for you as well. You'll notice that it's only doing my cost, not my grand total. Little extra here. Grand total is your cost plus any allocated add-ons. So if I really wanted all these things to show up all the time, because as soon as I expand it again, they go away. Now, if I collapse it only one level, I can get overlines at the subcategory level too. And the categories that you're going to get your overlines at depend on the sort you're doing at the bottom. So right now I'm doing phase item sort. So those are the categories I'm going to get overlines for. And if I put that same 15,000 square feet in here, I can see that my cost for project management on this project is $10.72 a square foot. So let's see how we can get these things to show up all the time. And to do this, it's on the File tab and under Options. Now, these options are user specific, so it's not something you can set for your company. If you want everybody to see this, everybody's going to have to go in and make this change. Luckily, the change is super easy to make. So it's this set of things right here that say display overline totals. So if you display your overline totals when they're expanded, that means when we show all of our detail, that's when they'll show up. If you also want to display the grand totals in your overlines, you have to turn this one on. And if you want to show the add-on piece, you have to turn this one on. I actually suggest turning them all on. The reason they're not turned on by default, I think, is just a holdover from the old pervasive days. When I first started using estimating, I'm going to date myself a little bit here. You used to actually get a warning message saying that turning these on might reduce the performance of your computer. That is no longer the case with today's computer. So I definitely say go ahead and turn these things on, unless for some reason you don't want to see that information in your spreadsheet. So after you turn those three on, hit the save button, hit close, and you can see everything suddenly shows up, even if I expand it all the way out. So not only am I getting the totals here and here, I'm also now seeing the add-on amount, the grand total, and the grand total unit price. So now that I've got those on, what are some of the things I can do with those? The obvious thing is you can run a report that will give you a summary of what you're looking at. So if we go in and we look at a report like that, that shows the overlines, we can just collapse this and we can kind of look at this in something like that view here. And now you've got a summary that basically just shows labor, material, and just shows totals, no unit costs. Now, if you wanted it to be a true schedule of values type setup, you could actually just hide all of those. And now you see your overlines for each category. And if you were sorting by, bid item or phase instead of by phase item, then you would be able to see that as well, and then use a spreadsheet report to actually print that or export it to PDF or whatever you want to do with it. So I'm going to jump back to the other layout I was on. This one. So some of the other things you can do with these is if you go into, and I'm actually just going to make these all 15,000 square feet right now. So I'm just going to grab that, fill that down. So that way I get unit costs all the way down. Now, if I went into my concrete number or my masonry number, let's use masonry, there's a few more items in there. We can come in here and you can actually modify this number. So if I go into my total amount and say, you know what, 378, I actually want that to say 380,000. I can make that change right there, and it's going to pop up the adjust column or adjust values window here. And it's going to say, hey, look, in order to do that, you need to add another $1,848.52 to all those items underneath there. Would you like to spread that amount into those items? And if you say okay, you'll see you get this little red triangle, which means that each of these items were adjusted, and they're adjusted by a percentage. So the items that have more dollar value to them originally will get a little bit more of that $1,848 or whatever it was. So you can go in and you can see that those items have changed. Now I've got a total of 380,000. You can do that at subcategories as well. So if I have something like my thermal and moisture protection, and I just want to change my insulation number, which seems really, really high anyways, you can actually come in here and say, you know what, there's no way that that is $24 million. So we're going to make it $24,000. Make it 240,000. And it's going to do the same thing, saying, hey, look, we got to take $22 million off of that, and it'll do that. Now, that's probably not the best way to solve a $22 million overrun, but it is a way, and it's very quick. Now, one of the things, the limitations of these overline totals is that you can do it to the total cost and total amount. So I can change any of these numbers that I want. So if I just want this guy to be $24 a square foot, I can do that. And that will also change things. What I cannot change is anything in the add-on column or in the grand total column. The reason for that is that the add-on information actually comes from your totals page. And this is just the things that were listed as allocatable. So you can't make modifications to that in the spreadsheet. You have to make those modifications back here on your total sheet. That is also the reason why the grand total amount can't be modified manually, is because this grand total amount is just this total plus the add-on amount to get you that. So all of these columns are calculated and cannot be modified using either the overlines or the individual item editing features. But you can do it for any of the other items as well. So if you just wanted to do your labor, for example, you can just do your labor, and this thing keeps popping up over here. You can do your material, you can do your sub. So those types of adjustments allow you to make very quick changes to your estimate if necessary. It also is nice because it automatically does that spread. So instead of just changing a value, like if I took this guy and made him 500, he turns blue, but you don't see what the old number used to be or anything. So using the spread, it actually comes in and it gives you this little red triangle, tells you how much it was adjusted. And actually, if you wanted to undo that, you can actually right click and undo the adjustment. Now, because I did the change over in the totals column and not individually on the material, I can't undo just the material. So I would need to come over here and undo it there. Okay. So I just went in right now and I plugged in 15,000 square feet for the side of my project. But if I wanted something a little bit different in there, say for example, on my masonry, I wanted to know what my square footage of block was or something along those lines. Let's actually move it to something not masonry. Here we go. So if we did gypsum wallboard assemblies and I wanted to know how much this number is, I can either go out and type it into a calculator. Um, I can actually take all of this. I can right click and say copy sum or use Control Shift and A. And then I can paste that amount in there. And it tells me what my total square footage of drywall is and my total cost per unit for drywall. Now that's all manual. It's a fine way to do it. And for a long time, that was the way to do it. But if you go into settings, so the other thing was under file options. This one is under settings right here on the home tab. There's actually an option in here to automatically calculate those overline quantities. So if you turn that on, you can see it changed all these things blue, which means that they are manually input values. Now you can, even with that turned on, you can still come in here and you can say, I'm just going to put in a manual value. That's fine. You can always do that. But if you want those removed, you can right click on a cell or the entire column and say remove the fixed quantity. Now, if I remove the fixed quantity, now it's trying to calculate what this number should be, and this number for that matter. The reason it is calculating 0 is because of the methodology it uses to actually do the calculation. So the way the software looks at it is it says, okay, I'm looking for everything in this section, which is just here, that has the unit of measure of SF. Now these all have SF, but estimating is actually case sensitive. So because this is capital and these are all lowercase, it's not finding them. So if I go ahead and change that to square foot, now it's going to automatically put those numbers in there. And if I come in here and say this is only 48,000, it's going to automatically change those numbers for me. So that's a nice way to kind of get some of those calculations, and you can actually fill that down and you can see that it automatically comes down and it does all of those. And I'll copy that and might as well grab them all. Now you'll notice some of them are still zeros. Some of them square foot probably doesn't make any sense. So right now it's adding up all the stuff that is square footage. So here's my tile. That's a good number. Acoustical ceilings, wood flooring. But if you get down into specialties, these things, let's expand that out a little bit. We look at all these specialties, they're all eaches. So these really need to be an EA. Now, if you do a fill down with everything expanded like this, I'm just going to do an SF real quick. It's going to change everything, including the units you're just on. So the individual line items. That's not what we want to do. So I'm going to undo that up here on the undo button. If you just want the things that are overlines, you can collapse this one level, take that down to there and fill down, and that will only do the level you're on currently. So it's only going to do the group overlines and the phase overlines, not the individual items. So let's expand that one more time, and you can see that these things are all adding up with eaches. Now, let's get down to earthwork a little bit. So earthwork is usually done with a cubic yard. So let's go ahead. This guy's probably not. This guy's probably an acre. This guy would be a cubic yard. This guy's a cubic yard. And this guy's probably a square foot. Okay. So when you look at this, the overline for earthwork is looking for everything under here that gives me a cubic yardage. So if I actually grab all of those and I look down here in the bottom, underneath the tabs, you can see that it says 6,135.78. That's the same number that's up here. Now, that's not actually the amount of earthwork you're doing necessarily. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, because you've got some site cut and some site fill, and you might just want to know the overall quantity. So to do that, you can actually trick the system a little bit. So what I have people do is come in here and say, okay, I'm going to put a period in front of this CY or after the CY, it doesn't matter either. I like periods just because they're small, nondescript. They don't really change. They don't look too bad in the way things change. And now you can actually come down here and say, okay, I want to add that one. But then you have to do it for this guy too. And I want to add this one, but I want to leave everything else out. So that's how you can kind of trick the system to only add up the things that you want it to add up in your section. Another example of that is things like exterior improvements. You might just want to use the total square yardage of asphalt, but you don't necessarily want the total square yardage of both of these because one's a base course and one's a surface course. You may just want one of them. So again, you can come in here and do like a square yards, and just pick one of these. And now it'll add those things up and it'll calculate my unit cost based on this number here. Some other ways people have done it is, like I said earlier, estimating is case sensitive. So I've also seen people who just use capitals for their overlines and then capitals for the things they want to be included in that. That's totally a personal opinion. I think that looks strange, so that's why I use the period instead. But that is 100% up to you on how you want it to do that. So that is calculating overline totals automatically. Now, this automatically calculating overline totals is not a user by user setting. You can see up here it says estimate settings. So that setting is specific to this estimate. So if you want to do that on another estimate, you would have to go in here and turn that on as those as well. So being able to see the overlines is a user by user setting found on File and Options. Being able to automatically calculate them is on the Home tab under Settings, and it is specific to the estimate you're currently working on. So that is a quick rundown on overlines and overline totals, how they can be used and how you can see them.